achieved.
Welcome to the Saturday morning breakfast table edition of Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson. I've had my breakfast, my son's had his breakfast, and now it's time to get down to some MMA predictions. On this episode of the show, we're breaking down the upcoming UFC 165 Jones versus Gustafsson, which will take place on September 21st, 2013 from the Air Canada Centre in Toronto, Ontario. In the co-main event, Barao puts his interim bantamweight title on the line against number 4 ranked Eddie Wineland as well, so a double dip of championship gold on the table for us with this event. I've got my 5 main card predictions here on this episode. All 8 preliminary predictions will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Now, because it's a hectic time of the year for me, I've had to shorten up prelim predictions. They're not, at least I'll try, they're not any less quality. They're just a little less typing because I just don't have the time to put that much. And plus, there's 8 of them for this card. I'm coming off a pretty poor showing. I went 5-6 at the last event, UFC Fight Nights 28. It's my first time going below 500 in 17 events. You have to go all the way back to February for the last time I had an event where I had more losses than wins. It was just a bad one. I took some shots with some preliminary undercard fights, and it just didn't work out. And that's all I have to say about that. The bet packs will be back for sale at kamikazeoverdrive.net. $10 for some fantastic bet packs that have been winning a ton of cash, a couple $1,000 over the last couple of shows prior to at least UFC Fight Night 28. So please consider investing in that if you're going to be doing any betting at this event. Also, for the show, this is the final event for the Kamikaze Overdrive Prediction Tour semifinals. So 4 amazing predictors available making their picks, and they will give you their insight posted just before the show start, probably within the first couple hours. So check them out. These guys are fantastic, and the 2 winners will advance to the championship finals. Let's get into the first set of predictions. We've got 5 of them on tap. Let's go. We're going to kick things off with a fantastic-looking UFC lightweight matchup as the number 10 ranked Pat Bam Bam Healy, former Strikeforce challenger with a record of 31-15-0 with 1 no contest, battles undefeated Russian superstar Khabib the Eagle Nurmagomedov, undefeated, as I said, at 20 wins and no losses. Healy debuted with an impressive come-from-behind victory over Jim Miller, but had it overturned when he tested positive for, I believe it was marijuana. Nurmagomedov, he's ripping through things, including 4 consecutive victories to start his UFC career. As I said, Healy's coming off suspension, but he's only been out of action for 5 months, so it's really not that long of a time away. What we've got here is a matchup of a wrestler and a Sambo practitioner, so 2 very good grappling foundations. Both guys have very impressive grappling stats and credentials. Nurmagomedov, he's an international master of Sambo and a judo black belt, so very highly ranked in both of those areas. He averages 8.17 takedowns at a 49% clip. Those numbers are a little bit skewed by the Trujillo fight. 78% takedown D, which is solid numbers. He's got 7 wins by submission. In that Trujillo, in his last fight, he went 21 for 27 on takedowns, but some people contesting what actually was a takedown and what was just a continuation of a move. I think those numbers are a little bit high. He did land 3 takedowns against a pretty good wrestler in Kamal Shalarus, but he went 0 for 13 against Gleison Tebow, but he was able to control the big Brazilian on the cage with some pressure. But again, he had limited offense, but then again, he did pick up the victory. Against Trujillo, he outmaneuvered him on the mat, which was quite impressive. He did get put in a couple of bad spots, but for the most part, he got the better of that and dominated that fight with a grappling-based attack. He has good passes, transitions, excellent ground and pound, just an overall solid top game, and he's pretty dangerous off his back, too. Now, Healy, he's going to have a huge experience advantage, 46 fights to just 20, and he's fought better competition overall. Now, he averages 3.83 takedowns at a 49%. Those are more true numbers as far as I'm concerned. A 68% takedown defense. And another thing, he averages 1.63 subs per 15 minutes, and he has 15 wins by submission overall, so pretty solid. His takedown numbers are good, and they're against some pretty good fighters. 5 takedowns against Jim Miller, 4 against Hirota, 4 against Carlos Fodor, 5 against Maximo Blanco, and in his only lightweight loss, he had 4 against top contender Josh Thompson, which was also quite impressive. Now, he has been submitted 6 times overall in his career, which is a number to take into consideration, but he has only 1 loss since cutting down to lightweight, and that was to Josh Thompson. He's 8-1-1 as a 155er, and he's a big 155er. He's going to have a 2-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. He's a former middleweight, and I think that helps him out big time here. He's broken down many lightweights with that size and his heavy top game and grinding wrestling style of approach. He took out Jim Miller, as Miller, had success early, but he just couldn't hold up the pace and dealing with fighting and wrestling with that bigger man. Now, Miller had success early, as I said, But Healy has tried, and Healy's had some trouble with some smaller guys. We saw him against Hirota, Blanco, and Fodor get cracked with some shots and fall behind a little bit early, and that I think has a lot to do with the speed. Nurmagomedov on the feet, he's an unorthodox striker, and he does have speed. He's got power as well, 7 wins by knockout. He has a tendency to jump into his punches, and I think his striking defense is a little bit poor. He raises his chin up when under attack, but no one's been able to exploit that yet. Healy, on the other hand, he's a serviceable striker. He has been KO'd 4 times, but again, all at welterweight. But he has been hurt in a couple of fights as well while fighting at lightweight, and Jim Miller almost stopped him late in the first round. Now, Healy has to take the speed away from this fight and make his size the issue, maintain top control, and really grind and use that ground and pound. For Khabib, he has to use constant pressure and surprise Healy, put him on his back, and be very aggressive like he was in the Gleison Tebow fight, and be relentless and land big shots when they're at distance. I actually like Pat Bam Bam Healy in this fight. I think he's known for derailing prospects, so my prediction is Pat Healy defeat Khabib Nurmagomedov, and I'll take him by decision. In the middleweight division, number 7 ranked Costa Philippou, 12-2-0 with 1 no contest, battles the limitless Francis Carmont, coming with a record of 21 wins, 7 losses, and no draws. Philippou has put together a pretty solid winning streak with 5 consecutive victories, while Francis Carmont has also picked up 5 straight wins since entering the UFC, and 9 overall. Now, this is the first fight for Costa after leaving Serra-Longo. Things were going very well there. I think he wanted to change. Maybe it was considering Chris Weidman, his teammate, had won or was potentially going to win the middleweight title. And I think that's maybe why he made a change to avoid that conflict potentially later down the road. We'll see how that pans out in this fight. Now, looking at this fight, Carmont 6 wins by knockout, 10 wins by submission, and 5 wins by decision, so he can do it all. Costa, on the other hand, 6 wins by knockout, only 1 win by sub, and he has 5 decision wins, so he's not nearly as capable on the mat, at least hasn't shown it in active competition. Now, Carmont, he's a combo of Muay Thai and grappling versus Costa. His focus is boxing and defensive wrestling overall. Francis, he struggled with wrestlers a little bit. Versus Lawler, he got stuck defending takedowns along the wall and really couldn't do a lot about it. And against Lorenz Larkin, he struggled to score the takedowns and really had a lot of trouble putting him on his back and executing his grappling game. He's a very good grappler when he does get the fight to the ground. We saw that against Carlos Vemela and Magnus Sedenblad when he submitted them both. And he's working in a TriStar, so he's got a lot of really great guys there to work on his grappling with, and it's certainly showing up. He has good transitions, calm under pressure. He's put in some bad spots in both those fights he won by sub, and he survived them. And he's very heavy on top when he does get there. His wrestling takedowns, 1.82 takedowns at 32%, so not numbers that knock you off your chair, but 86% takedown defense, which is pretty solid. But that won't be an issue, I think, against Costa. I don't think Philippou's going to be looking to shoot and take him down. Now, Costa, he is a BJJ purple belt, so don't knock the guy. And working with with Matt Serra, he's going to know some good stuff on the mat. He's very capable there, at least when he was working there. But again, only 1 win by submission in active competition, no losses overall. Takedown defense has been an issue for him. Tim Boetsch did take him down twice, and in his Costa's victory, and his lone UFC loss, Nick Catone put him on his back a couple of times, and he struggled there. But he's really shored up his takedown defense. It's really become quite a thing to see. He did struggle with Tim Boetsch maintaining separation as Boetsch was able to close the distance and lock him up at least early on in that fight. But he does have very strong hips, excellent balance, a good sprawl. He knows how to use movement to shut down takedowns. His underhooks are fantastic, and his counters are all serve also as a deterrent for a guy looking to close the distance and tie up with them. Now, he showed good ground and pound on top of Boetsch, but again, he won't be shooting on Carmont. I don't expect him to see him on top unless he cracks Francis and knocks him down. Costa, I said, primarily a boxer. Some kicks, not really that heavy a kicking game. Excellent combinations. Accuracy is a big thing for him. Timing is good. And he has that brutal uppercut we saw him land on Tim. And if he sneaks that in, that can put somebody's lights out. He has big power, 6 wins by knockout. Strikes landed per minute, 2.77 versus strikes absorbed per minute, 2.55 is a little bit of a concern. It's a little bit too close, but what he relies on there to make the difference is that power as he lands, when both guys are landing the same amount. If he can hit you harder, he will win in the end. Now, Carmont, he's a more diverse striker, strong in the clinch, elbows, knees, and short punches. That's going to be big for him. Good range striking, good leg kicks, long punches. He has a nice stepping knee, a 5-inch reach advantage, and a 4-inch height advantage, which should help him out when he can keep the fight at distance. His strikes landed per minute, 2.21 versus 1.51 strikes absorbed. So he limits his opponents offensively and does an effective job at that, usually using his grappling to keep them, shut them down. He's going to be looking for takedowns for Costa, and we saw against Lorenz Larkin, and he had a lot of trouble against a guy who has good takedown defense in Larkin. Costa being shorter is going to allow him to defend the takedowns easier, and it's going to force Carmont to make a significant level change to get in and try and drag him to the ground. look for Costa to do some counter-striking, defend and circle off the cage, and then go on his own offensive attack. And my prediction is Costa Philippou to defeat Francis Carmont. I'll take Philippou by decision. We're heading up to the big boys next in the UFC's heavyweight division as Brendan the Hybrid Schaub, 10-3-0, battles Matt Mitrione with a record of 6-2-0. Schaub coming off a win over LeVar Johnson, while Matt Mitrione knocked out Philip DeFries in his last appearance. And these guys are former Tough 10 alumni, so they certainly have a little bit of experience with each other and they're familiar with who they are fighting. A couple big questions coming into this bout. Mitrione's grappling defense, how it holds up against Brendan Schaub's chin and whether it can take a punch or a significant punch on more than just one occasion. Looking at Mitrione first, he's got a 57% takedown defense, but in almost all of his fights he's been taken down on multiple occasions. Congo took him down twice, Christian Moorcraft took him down twice. You go back early in his career, which, how relevant is that? I don't know. But Kimbo Slice put him on his back 2 times. Marcus Jones did it 3 times as well. Both in fights he won, but still, you don't want to allow guys too many opportunities to put you on your back. And the big question is there, how good is he working off his back if he does get put in that position? Now, Schaub, he isn't a world-class wrestler, but he has showed wrestling-based attacks in a couple of his fights, mainly the Mirko Cro Cop and LeVar Johnson fights, the last one he had. Schaub, 2.51 takedowns at 53%, so pretty decent numbers. As I said, he had 5 takedowns against LeVar and 4 against Mirko. Now, he changes levels well, and he shoots hard, which can be difficult for a guy to defend against. He's got a BJJ brown belt. He will attempt some submissions from top position and some ground and pound, but he needs to be very active when he's on top to avoid getting stood up. His grappling, he was in a grappling competition not that long ago. It was quite a disaster and an embarrassment, known for stalling. That's something I think he'll want to erase in this fight. Wrestling, one thing it certainly does is it removes the danger of his chin issues. It takes away that element. He's not going to get knocked out when he's on top of a guy or at least fighting on the ground, and that's something he's certainly going to be looking at. And now the chin, of course, Schaub has been knocked out 3 times. Big Ben Rothwell, Big Nog, and Big Country. So we got some big power knocking Brendan Schaub out. Can Matt Mitrione break the big trend at least? Mitrione, 5 wins by KO. He's got good movement, long reach at 82 inches, which should come into effect here. And above average foot speed for a heavyweight, which is pretty remarkable the way he moves around the cage for a guy his size. Strong leg kicks. Overall, he's got an improving striking game, and it's quite dangerous when he gets it going. Schaub has power too, 7 wins by knockout. He knocked out Mirko Cro Cop, which is nothing to sneeze at. Even though he was in the later stages of his career. He's also very athletic, fast, improving his striking as well. He needs to avoid getting tagged, though, and that's what it comes down to. If he needs to avoid taking a shot on the chin, because it cost him against Rothwell and it cost him against Nogueira. In both those fights, he was doing well until he took one big shot. Both guys, high strikes landed per minute for heavyweights. Mitrione at 3.78, Schaub at 3.31, and Schaub a slightly better strikes absorbed per minute, but not that noteworthy. But very high for heavyweights. Mitrione did get knocked out by Roy Nelson, so his chin's not perfect, but Nelson hits hard, and Matt didn't have his mouth guard in either. It fell out at that point, and that can have an effect as well. Mitrione limited recent cage experience is a bit of a concern. Since 2011, he's fought a grand total of 3 minutes and 17 seconds inside the cage. He has a 19-second KO win in his last fight where he basically caught his opponent coming in. Of course, Roy Nelson, he looked not bad the Nelson fight until Nelson clipped him and took him out. Big question is what happens if he gets drawn into a little bit of a longer matchup? How does he hold up? Brendan Schaub and, of course, training at Greg Jackson's, I think they're going to game plan for Matt Mitrione on the mat, put him down there and really test him, try and grind him into the cage, beat him up there. He's had success with that before. Mitrione's had some trouble. Schaub can hold his own on the feet, and I think that's significant as long as he doesn't get tagged. He has an advantage on the mat. I think he's got some good ability to win this fight here. So my prediction is Brendan Schaub to pull off a minor upset and defeat Matt Mitrione. I'll take Schaub by decision. In the co-main event of the evening, we're in the UFC's bantamweight division. It's number 1 ranked and interim bantamweight champion Renan Barao, 32-1-0 with 1 no contest. Battles number 4 ranked 28-1 Eddie Wineland, the former WEC and first ever WEC bantamweight champion. Barao is on a significant winning streak, and he's got 2 wins over some of the best in the division, Michael McDonald and Uriah Faber, in his last 2 appearances. Eddie Wineland, on the other hand, no slouch either. He's on a 2-fight winning streak, picking up victories over Brad Pickett and Scotty Jorgensen. Now, Wineland, as I said, first WEC bantamweight champion. He won it back in 2006 with a knockout of Antonio Banuelos. He's only 29, so he's been at it for a while, lots of experience, but certainly by no stretch of the imagination is he over the hill. Now, Dana said this is probably the last fight with the interim tag, so either Cruz is coming back or he's going to be stripped of his title. So huge opportunity for both men here to walk away with the newly minted UFC bantamweight title. Barao has knockout power, 6 wins. We saw him drop Brad Pickett with a knee before submission. He's dangerous with his feet, and he doesn't get as much credit. Dangerous with his hands. He doesn't get as much credit as I expect he should with his striking. Very fast, excellent distance management. He shut down both Uriah Faber and Scotty Jorgensen with his range fighting, and he has a very strong kicking game. 3.58 strikes landed per minute, which is pretty solid. Holds opponents under 2.5, which is good. I actually thought it'd be lower than that, but still, it's a good number. 66% percent striking defense, so he makes his opponents throw a lot of attempts to land what they can land. Now, McDonald did have some success early against Henan, hurting with a flurry, but he was able to shrug it off and go back to work. Wineland, he's a very unorthodox striker. He likes to throw a lot of funky angles and footwork and head movement and speed at his opponent, and it usually gives them trouble. Power, he has 10 wins by knockout, which is impressive. That Scotty Jorgensen knockout was awesome. I called that upset, and he showed, it was fantastic. Jorgensen's a tough dude. And he also dropped Brad Pickett a couple of times, and Pickett's no easy out either. Not a huge kicking game, and he relies mainly on his boxing, which could show up in a fight like this against a more diverse opponent. Strikes landed per minute, 3.25 versus strikes absorbed per minute at 3.22. He takes as much damage as he dishes out, which is not a good thing, and that's certainly a concern. He relies heavily on the confidence in his chin and his movement to avoid getting hit or to absorb the damage and then do his own damage, and that's not a great strategy, especially against a guy like Barao. Eddie Wineland technically does a lot of things wrong with his striking. He holds his hands very low, his chin's upright and exposed, as I said, his head's up kind of almost in that flagpole, and he's got away with it for the most part because of his speed. But Brad Pickett struggled early in that fight, but as he got the timing down, he was able to start landing some shots in Eddie and close the gap in that matchup that Wineland clearly had won early on, but Pickett got right back into it and forced a split decision. Another thing with Eddie, he will bleed, which is certainly a concern, and he shows damage, and this affects his focus. We saw that in the Joseph Benavidez fight. He needs to be more responsible defensively in this fight. The speed and power of Barao, combined with that high strikes landed per minute setup, is going to be very dangerous for Eddie Wineland, the challenger. Wineland's success so far is equivalent to shutting down his opponent's offensive wrestling, forcing his opponents to strike with him. Renan Barao is going to be absolutely fine with that if that happens to be the case. He has no problem standing and banging with a guy like Wineland. He can hold his own. 80% takedown defense for Wineland, but limited offensive wrestling recently. He has 5 wins by submission, but he's also been tapped out 4 times. He hasn't been that strong of a guy to go after the takedowns and threaten a guy like Barao with that. Now, the Brazilian, Schaub, he's a BJJ black belt, 1.75 takedowns at 58% and a 95% takedown defense. So very good offensively and defensively. 14 wins by submission, including guys like, as I said, McDonald. He tapped out McDonald last fight, tapped out Brad Pickett, Chris Carey also as well. He has a great top game. He could look to keep Wineland off his game with threats of takedowns. We saw him land 4 against Michael McDonald and eventually put him to sleep or tap him out late in that fight. Cardio is going to be an element as well in this fight. Eddie slowed down against Faber, and he's only had one 5-round fight in his career, and that's the one he lost his title a number of years ago. Barao has decent cardio. He'll slow a bit too, but not like Eddie Wineland. Wineland leaves too many openings on the feet, and he's quite vulnerable on the mat as far as I'm concerned if he can be put in that position. And he will slow down because of the pace of Renan Barao, the pace that he keeps. Wineland needs to land early and hurt and finish Barao as the fight goes on. I think the champion will be untouchable. So my prediction is Renan Barao to defeat Eddie Wineland and retain his title by submission. Moving now to the main event of the evening, we have the UFC's light heavyweight champion, Jon Bones Jones, 18-1-0, putting his title on the line again, this time against the number 1 ranked Swedish superstar, Alexander the Mauler Gustafsson, carrying a record of 15-1-0. Jon Jones coming off his TKO victory over Chael Sonnen at UFC 159, while Alexander Gustafsson defeated Mauricio Shogun Rua, the man that started Jon Jones' title run, the former light heavyweight champion. Now, physically, that's one of the things that everybody's talking about for this match. Jones is 6'4", Gustafsson 6'5", so nearly the same height. And the reach, Fight Metric has it at 84.5 for Jones and 76.5 for Gustafsson, but in a recent interview, the Swede said that my reach is actually 81.5, so, that's significantly more, and either way, this is the first time in Jon Jones' UFC career he's facing an opponent that is physically in the same league as him, and that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Now, Gustafsson, he works distance very well. He moves in and out using a lot of long-range weapons, and that's a big part of his game. Now, for Johnny Jones, he maximizes his reach advantage. He knows how to do it, but Lyoto Machida was giving him some trouble with the distance game until Jones closed that gap and pushed him into the cage. So distance management could be a major issue for both guys, actually, because this is the first time Gustafsson's faced somebody who's going to be able to hit him while he's trying to fight at range. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Both guys have strikes landed per minute just under 4, so pretty solid for big men like them. But Jones limits his opponents to 1.44, which is impressive. Gustafsson about 2.29, which is still a good number, but still almost a full strike more per minute. And, Gus is hard to hit regardless. Both guys have big KO numbers. Gustafsson 10, Jon Jones 9, and most of the most part they're TKO guys, not one-punch knockout artists. Unorthodox strikers, they throw a variety of techniques. Johnny Jones, those standing elbows we saw against Rashad Evans. Gustafsson, I really like the uppercut. He has a nice front kick as well, and he uses a lot of movement to throw guys off. Also, they both have submission capabilities. We saw Jon Jones tap out, has got 6 tap out wins, and some of the names: Lyoto Machida, Vitor Belfort, Rampage Jackson, and Ryan Bader. So a pretty list of impressive names of guys he has submitted. Gustafsson's got 3 wins by submission, 2 of them coming in the UFC, with James Tahuna and Cyril Diabate being those 2. Johnny Jones, though, he does come from a wrestling background. He's got that Greco-Roman wrestling background, and Gustafsson does not, but he's still refining his skills. He's working with Phil Davis, which is a great guy to work on his wrestling with, especially that freestyle approach. Roughly same takedown percentages, high 2s, or takedowns per fight at least. Jones' better completion rate at 62% versus Gus, who just lands 50% of his takedowns. On the other side of things, both guys have good takedown defense. Johnny Jones has never been taken down in a fight at 100% takedown defense. Well, Gustafsson, incredibly good as well, 84%. He has been taken down a couple of times. He was taken down by Shogun once, and he had trouble, as I said, with Phil Davis, getting taken down and eventually submitted. And he is working with Davis. He actually had some, early on, he had some success against Phil on the ground in that fight, and that was a number of years ago, so it was very impressive for him to be able to put that kind of performance together. Big thing for Johnny Jones is those brutal elbows on top. We've seen him break down a number of opponents when he can get a dominant position and start landing them, even from the guard, because he is so long and has such a range with them. He's very strong in the clinch. We saw him beat up and take out Shogun from that position and submit Lyoto Machida, so very impressive in short range. First time that either man has faced someone with similar physical attributes, and I think that's a big issue here. But Jones is still going to have a little bit of a reach advantage. He is going to be, I think he physically, he still is a very dangerous fighter. I think athletically he offers a little bit more than Alexander Gustafsson does. Gustafsson is going to have to be the one that overcomes that reach, because Jones will still have the reach advantage, where Gustafsson is still going to have to close the distance and fight in a style he's not necessarily used to, at least. And he's going to have to change his game up, having to close that distance, as I said, and attack well in the line of fire, which he's not used to. I think Jones' wrestling is going to be the key in his clinch work. Gustafsson's not that strong off his back if he gets put in that position. He can get up, but Johnny Jones is a load to get off you. And my prediction is Jon Jones to defeat Alexander Gustafsson, and I'll take Jon Jones by submission. So those are my UFC 165 main card predictions. All of my preliminary picks will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. I'd like to send a special thank you out to my son Lucas for being very patient while Daddy puts his prediction video together. You've heard him chime in a couple of times, but for the most part, he was a pretty good little boy. My bet packs will be available for $10. The Kamikaze Overdrive prediction tournament will also be winding down, at least the semifinals. This is the final event, and then the 2 finalists will be crowned. It looks like it could be USA versus Canada, but still anything can happen. Their picks are posted in the KOPT2 section of the website, so please check them out. Vote in the public picks. Lots going on, and I'm looking to rebound here. So as always, thank you very much for tuning in and listening to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions.